The autumn wind swept through the Montana wilderness, sharp with the scent of pine and the warning of early snow. Liza May Sullivan stood tall in the middle of her 40 acres, her hands raw and blistered, her breath clouding in the frosty air. At 28, she had traded the polished ballrooms of Boston for the harsh silence of the frontier. Her belly had only just begun to show, a secret life stirring inside her. But still she dragged timbers one by one to the foundation she had laid with stubborn pride. The morning ground crunched beneath her boots as she pushed another log into place. Each piece of wood was a battle. Each nail driven was a promise. She whispered to the child growing within her. "It's just you and me. We'll build something no one can take away." But even as she said the words, doubt pressed heavy on her shoulders. Winter was coming fast, and the small tent she called shelter was no match for what the mountains could bring. She had arrived 3 weeks earlier with a wagon full of tools, a few dried goods, and the determination to carve a new life. But determination did not keep the cold from creeping into her bones at night. Nor did it stop her muscles from screaming after each day's labor. Miles away, Clayton Hart rode along the northern border of his family's ranch. His gray eyes scanned the horizon, sharp as a hawk's. He knew every chimney, every campfire, and 50 miles. But this smoke rising through the trees was new. The land had recently been sold, his father had mentioned, to some eastern investor who would likely send hired men. Yet, as he guided his horse closer, what he saw stopped him. A lone woman in a faded brown dress and boots too large for her frame struggled against the weight of a pine beam. Her dark hair had come loose in wisps around her face, her jaw set with a fierce will. Before he could call out, the log shifted dangerously. "Ma'am," Clayton shouted, swinging down from his horse. Eliza felt the timber tilt and braced, but it was too heavy. In a flash, Clayton was beside her, catching the load before it could crush her. Together, they lowered it to the ground, both panting from the effort. "I had it under control," Eliza said quickly, brushing the dirt from her skirts, her chin lifting in defiance. "I'm sure you did," Clayton replied, tipping his hat. Clayton Hart. "My family owns the Double H Ranch just south of here. Eliza Sullivan," she said, arms folded across her chest. "And this is my land. Bought and paid for." Clayton glanced around. He saw the foundation she'd laid. The dying embers of a small forge. The meager camp with no sign of help. "You're building alone. Is that so unusual for a person?" "Yes. For a woman." He stopped when her eyes flashed like blue steel. "It's rare and dangerous. Winter doesn't forgive poor planning. I've managed fine thus far. Have you?" He gestured to the beam lying at their feet. "Another inch and that pine would have crushed you. Your foundation's good, better than most. But spring melt will flood it out come April. Water will pull here. You'll want to shift higher ground." Eliza stiffened. She had counted on the creek nearby. "I was told it runs year-round. By the man who sold you the land, I'd wager." Clayton said evenly. "It'll be dry by December, but there's a spring 300 yards northwest. Never fails, even in drought." Her pride warred with the truth in his words. She didn't answer, only narrowed her eyes. "Why tell me this?" Clayton studied her. She was exhausted, though she hid it behind her defiance. He also noticed the swell beneath her dress and the protective way she moved. Something stirred in him, a quiet protectiveness he couldn't explain. "Because everyone deserves a fair chance," he said. "The frontier is hard enough without fighting the wrong battles." A low rumble of thunder rolled over the mountains. Clayton looked west where clouds built like walls. "Storm's coming. Early snow." He nodded toward her tent. "That won't hold against it." "It has so far," she said. "In autumn rain, maybe, but that's snow on the wind." He stepped back toward his horse. I'll send men to help. No. The words snapped out sharp and fast. I thank you for the advice about water, Mr. Hart, but I don't need charity. It's not charity. It's help. I didn't ask for it, and I can't repay it. She squared her shoulders. I came here to build something with my own hands. I won't trade one form of dependence for another. Clayton saw it now. The shadows in her eyes spoke of betrayal and disappointment, of vows broken or trust lost. He had seen that look before in war widows and abandoned wives. He tipped his hat again. Independence is admirable. Just remember, no shame in accepting help when it's freely given. He mounted his horse and treat that timber with pine tar before the snow flies. Keeps it from rotting come spring. Then he rode away, leaving her standing alone among her half-built dreams, the thunder rolling closer. That night, as rain turned to sleep against her tent, Eliza lay with her hands on her belly. The beam could have killed her. Pride had nearly been her undoing. But accepting help, that was a trap she had sworn never to fall into again. Morning came, crisp and clear. Frost glazed the trees, and on the ground outside her tent lay a small oilcloth package. Inside were containers of pine tar and a folded note. For the timber, no payment expected. Ch. Eliza held the bundle for a long time, torn between suspicion and gratitude. Pride urged her to toss it aside, but her hands, calloused, bleeding, aching, knew better. She would use it, and she would remember, for in this land, debts were never truly free. 3 weeks passed since that storm, and the creek had already dwindled to a trickle. Liza cursed her pride for doubting Clayton's warning, but she had acted quickly, moving her half-built cabin closer to the spring. The delay had cost her precious time, but she would not admit it out loud. Each day the winds grew sharper, biting through her clothes, whispering that winter would not wait for her stubbornness. From the ridge, Clayton often watched. He never approached unless she looked ready to break under some impossible task. Sometimes it was lifting a beam, sometimes holding a ladder. He always kept his distance, waiting for her to allow him close. When she did, they worked side by side in silence. No obligations. That was their unspoken rule. This morning, Eliza was struggling to hang a door on its rusty hinges. The salvaged ladder wobbled dangerously with each nail she drove. Clayton called from his horse. "Morning, Miss Sullivan." She stiffened. "Miss, not Ms.," she corrected, as she always did. "My apologies." He dismounted easily, his tall frame moving with the grace of a man born to the saddle. "That ladder looks like it's about to send you into the dirt." "Allow me." She wanted to refuse, but the door swayed heavy against her grip. "If you're passing by anyway." He steadied the ladder, strong hands firm but never intrusive. "My mother sent preserves," he said casually. "Her apple butter's famous in 3 counties. Thought you might want a jar." Quote, Eliza kept hammering, her cheeks warming despite the chill air. "Your mother knows about me. In a valley this small everyone knows she's curious about the woman building alone. She thinks it shows grit." He smiled faintly. "She'd like to meet you." Eliza's hammer struck harder than needed. "I'm not seeking society." She isn't society. She's Catherine Hart. She remembers what it's like to start with nothing. Eliza hesitated. Then she climbed down, brushing sawdust from her skirts. Clayton held her steady at the bottom. Their eyes met briefly, and she noticed the roughness of his palms, not the hands of a pampered rancher, but of a man who worked. He mentioned a barn raising at the Kowalski homestead. "Good folk. 5 miles south, Maria's expecting her 3rd child. She'd welcome another woman's company." Eliza's hand moved unconsciously to her swelling middle. The thought of women like her, women who understood, was both terrifying and tempting. Perhaps, she said softly. The next Saturday she found herself in her best mended dress, riding to the Kowalski farm. She nearly turned back 3 times, fear clawing at her chest. But she pressed on, and when she arrived, the sight stole her breath. Dozens of men lifted beams. Women tended fires. Children darted between wagons. Life, loud and warm, surrounded her. Before she could lose courage, a woman with kind eyes and silver-threaded hair took her hand. "You must be Eliza. I'm Catherine Hart." Clayton's mother guided her toward the women preparing food. "Maria, come meet Eliza Sullivan. She's building near Beaver Creek." Maria waddled forward, heavily pregnant and beaming, building alone. "Brave woman, come sit. Tell me when baby is due." Just like that, Eliza was folded into their circle. They shared advice, laughter, and remedies for swollen ankles. No one asked too many questions. No one judged. She felt seen and for the first time in months, not alone. Across the yard, she caught Clayton's eye. He worked with the men, sweat glistening on his brow, but every so often he glanced her way, not claiming her, not pushing, only checking that she was all right. When the barn frame stood tall and the feast began, Eliza sat between Maria and an old woman named Ruth. Ruth told her, "Built my first house while my husband was away on the railroads. Folks called me crazy, but pride's a cold bedfellow girl. Warmth comes from community." Quote, on the ride home, Eliza found her wagon mysteriously heavier. Flour, preserves, smoked meat tucked inside. She protested, but Catherine waved her off. "You'll do the same for others someday. That's how we survive here." Driving back through the twilight, Eliza's chest tightened with an unfamiliar feeling. Hope. Maybe she didn't have to carry everything alone, but hope is fragile. Whispers reached her not long after at the general store in the quiet pauses when conversations fell silent as she walked in. Speculation about the widow building alone with Clayton Hart always nearby. The whispers carried a name she had buried. Whitmore. The truth she'd fled from Boston was closer than she dared admit. One cold morning, a carriage appeared on the rough trail to her cabin. Its wheels were too fine for frontier roads. From it stepped Victoria Morrison, elegant and polished, the woman everyone knew was meant to be Clayton Hart's bride. Victoria's smile was sweet, but her eyes were sharp. "Mrs. Sullivan, or is it Miss? I only came to offer my sympathies and my advice. You see, you're playing a dangerous game. Clayton Hart has obligations, a legacy,